had, recommendations since 2002. They expect that when you make recommendations and they're addressed before we get to a point where people...
We will not be able to present credible, impartial, and thorough report without having followed the whole process.
Thank you for sparing time to talk to us. Firstly, you have been meeting with major players in the political scene. I mean, since you came, what are the main issues you've been speaking with them about, and why are these issues important to the nation?
Thank you very much. Well, we have met different actors in both the political field as well as NGOs, civil society, of course, and then different institutions. And what we have been talking about is basically the process of the election observation, and to get a holistic view and insight into the work that are being conducted, for us to be able to do a thorough, impartial, and independent report in the end that will also, of course, include recommendations.
Most have realized during the press conference a lot of questions came up about your findings. You have constantly declined to comment on them.
So I haven't declined to answer any of the questions. The role of the election observation mission here in Sierra Leone, as well as in other parts of the world, is to observe the elections. And the elections is, of course, taking place at the election day, but as important the election days is also what is happening before the election days, and how the roles that the different actors are having is very important, and if the work that they are conducting. So, and as well as what is happening after the election days. So the election process is a very broad range of days that takes place in broad, long-term range of days. So I haven't declined any answer, but rather ensured that we will be able to present an impartial, holistic, credible, and independent report.
The general expectation is that observers come in to observe, but also what they share in terms of what they observe, they expect us to work on them. You have had, recommendations since 2002. So they expect that when you make recommendations and they're addressed before we get to a point where people dispute the election.
Well, what we have for the last elections, we had follow-up missions to follow up on the implementations of the recommendations. This is how the process is in most cases of election observation mission, because we will not be able to present credible, impartial, and thorough report without having followed the whole process. But of course, then the follow-up of the recommendations are also important.
From the questions also, you must have realized that there is kind of trust issues among Sierra Leoneans towards the new observation mission. I mean, some questions that came up. What do you think about that?
I just want to stress that we are doing our work impartially and independently, and I myself, including the whole election observation team of almost 100 people that will be observing the elections during the election days, and also before and after, is doing the work according to impartiality and being independent, We have, for example, very strict code of conduct regulations that every and each observer must follow. So I just want to assure you that we will be impartially anyways that is possible, and the trust you don't need to hesitate on.
Finally, from your experience observing not just the elections in Sierra Leone, but also you mentioned Kenya and Nigeria in previous missions.
Yes.
Are there specific lessons you have learned, the EU observation mission generally, I mean, that you would want to take note of to avoid the issue we just spoke about, the trust issues?
Every and each election is special, of course, but there are national regulations and there are regional and international commitments that most of the countries have, and it is important to implement the commitment and respect the commitments on international, regional, as well as on a national level, to ensure that the whole process of the election is as democratic as possible, as peaceful as possible, as credible as possible. So that is my take and my learning from previous elections also, that every and each election is very special, but we have international frameworks very important to implement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.